What according to Foucault are the different features of the author function? Discuss. Or, what is author function? Elaborate the four crucial features of author function as discussed by Foucault in What is an Author? Marks 10-12. Answer. According to Foucault, the author function is the author as a function of discourse. It is not a person and is not to be confused with either the author or the writer. The author function is more like a set of beliefs or assumptions governing the production, circulation, classification and consumptions of texts. Foucault identifies and describes four characteristics of the author function. 1. The author function is linked to the legal system. It arises as a result of the need to punish those responsible for transgressive statements. Some texts are objects of appropriation, forms of property. Speeches and books are assigned to real authors, only when the authors become subjected to punishment for what the speech or book has said. When the writing speech has said something that has broken rules, then systems of authority have to find some locus from which the transgressive speech came from. Foucault's example is that of heresy. When heresy was uttered, there had to be a heretic behind the utterance, since we cannot punish words or ideas, but only the people who author these words or ideas. From this idea of locating authorship in someone, came also the idea of ownership of works, and the idea of copyright rules associated with ownership. 2. The author function is not a universal or constant feature of every text. Myths, fairy tales, folk stories, legends, jokes, etc. don't require an author. Literary texts in earlier days could be anonymous, whereas scientific texts had to be attached to a name, to an author. Because the credibility of the scientific texts came from the names of the authors associated with it. In the 17th and 18th century, this situation was reversed. Scientific texts began to speak for themselves, to be objective and thus to be judged on the basis of the arrangements presented and the credibility of results. Literary works in this era began to be evaluated on the basis of the notion of the author. As for example, if we read the drama Hamlet by Shakespeare, we surely need to have the idea of Shakespeare as author function. Not just as some guy who hung out the London theatres in Elizabethan era. 3. The author function is not formed spontaneously, through some simple attribution of a discourse to an individual. Rather, it results from the various cultural constructions, in which we choose certain attributes of an individual as cultural attributes. A text is eliminated from the list of belonging to a particular author, if 1. The text is markedly superior or inferior to other texts on the list. 2. The ideas in that text contradict or conflict with ideas presented in other texts. 3. The style is different from that of other texts belonging to that author. 4. It refers to events after the death of the author. Foucault reiterates these ideas and modifies them only slightly. The author's biography explains the presence of certain events in the text. The author is a principle of unity, the author neutralizes contradictions. And the author is a particular source of expression manifested equally well in texts, letters, fragments, grocery lists, etc. 4. The text always bears signs that refer to the author, or create the author function. The most easily recognizable of these signs is the pronoun I in the text. The term author does not refer purely and simply to a real individual. The author is much like the narrator in that he/she can be an alter ego for the actual flesh-and-blood writer. Finished. Please subscribe to the channel for more updates of ready-made notes on English literature. Also, Please share this channel to help any student pursue a degree in English literature.